And those of you that are youngsters, let me be blunt here. Those of you that are below the age of 30, 35 and you've been born and raised here and you have these idealistic, utopic, very romanticized version of Islam. You weren't around when 9/11 happened. I was a teenager. I was a young man. And my version of Islam and my black and white version was tempered with the realities of 9/11. 9/11 was a wake-up call for all of us. Of course, it was a tragedy. We were definitely against, obviously, what happened. But as a Muslim community, we realized we were totally unprepared. Many people that I knew were expelled from this country. Many institutes were shut down. Many masajid were raided. And we were totally unprepared. And we realized we needed a level of political discourse, a level of wisdom and acumen that we didn't have. It was a wake-up call for me personally in my own understanding of Islam. Listen to my history introductory, and I went over this myself. It made me realize we can't have these simplistic slogans. We need to be practical and realistic without losing touch of our heritage. It was a wake-up call for every one of us. Now we see that same wake-up call in Palestine and Gaza. We see that same wake-up call. What do we do when our own country is the #1 supporter of apartheid regime? What do we do when we give them their complete, the umbilical cord that keeps that country alive is us? What do? We just sit back and criticize everybody that wants to do something. But if we get involved, we're going to have to choose which battle. We cannot choose every single battle. I don't have answers, but I do know Allah has tested us and blessed us to engage in types of changes and rhetoric and dialogue that is unprecedented in the history of the ummah. We've never had to discuss this before. So, even if I don't have the answers, I do say, my advice to all of you, don't listen to simplistic rhetoric that thinks it can solve the problem in one dimension. There's no such solution. Listen to ulama and activists that are more central. Listen to them who understand, I can't just be in my masjid preaching and teaching and be disconnected from society around me. There's got to be some involvement. And also, activists need to understand, you can't have activism without some basis in the Quran and Sunnah, without an attachment to the heritage of the Prophet ﷺ. What is Islamic activism without Islam? So the two of us need to dialogue together, form a happy middle ground, and try to figure out a way that we preserve the interests of our community. We are not enemies of one another. We are on the same team. We might have different roles to play, but we're on the same team. So my humble request and ask, every one of us, understand, you are in a particular time and place. Consider yourself the first domino. And how you fall, the direction you fall in, the direction you go, is going to influence many, 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 many thousands of dominoes after you. It's a very big responsibility. So please, for the sake of Allah and then for the sake of your future progeny, make sure you have an attachment to Allah. Make sure your heart is pure, because everything begins from here. Make sure you want good for the sake of Allah, because when you want good, Allah will bless you. And then study, ask, dialogue, interact with people, and choose your leaders and mentors with wisdom. Sometimes the ones with the fiercest and the harshest and the sweetest rhetoric are actually the most misguided people. Think with the head that Allah has given you, and don't just follow simplistic slogans. Your religious scholarship is itself divided. Your activists are themselves divided. Choose amongst them those that seem to understand the situation the best. Choose with wisdom, because that will dictate who you are and your future progeny. And throughout all of this, constantly raise your hands to Allah and pray, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. That's what you need to pray to Allah for. Guide us to the straight path. Help us be the change that we can, inshaAllah ta'ala, preserve this religion.